So Cairo Gold interview here with my main man, Dr. Joe Strauss, and excited to have him on with us as always. And just a quick little update here for those of you maybe who don't know. Joe had a stroke 2.5 weeks ago now, and anyway, it's just really a testament to his dedication to chiropractic and his willingness to just be of service to us and everyone else that he's willing to jump on this video today while he's actually in the hospital. Did some rehab this morning. And also a testament to his wife, Iris Strauss, who, you know, as they always say, every great man has a great woman behind him and supporting him. And she's been such a big help previous to this. But again, today she went through a lot of effort to make sure that we could put this together and have a chance again to chat with Joe. So we are extremely grateful to both Joe and Iris for helping to make this happen and just their contributions to the chiropractic profession as a whole and just being fantastic people. So so thank you, Joe. Thank you, Iris. I don't know if she's probably in the background there, so hopefully she can hear that. But we appreciate you guys so much, and so we're glad you're here.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
It's good to be here. I think it's remarkable that people have told me what what kind of progress I've made, and it's only because of this amazing body that we have, and the ability of my body to bounce back and to even despite the injury I had, and that my body has been able to get better, and to the degree that I'm functional. And of course, it remains to be seen whether I make sense today. But I feel good, and every time the doctor checks me out, he asks if I'm in pain. I say no, I'm not in pain, and I seem to be doing pretty good, and my body is bouncing back. And I think that the human body has the ability to bounce back, and it has probably is able to do it a little bit better because I've been under chiropractic care for so long. And
Absolutely.
And no matter what kind of injury you have, your body it heals a little bit better if you've got a good nerve supply. And that's what I give credit to. And the occupational therapist and the what do you call them? The physical therapists say that I'm really making good progress. So it remains.
Well, it's a combination of things. You've been under regular chiropractic care for a long time, and you're a wrestler, so you're just tough. So.
Well, I wasn't so tough last week ago Friday night when I went down. In fact, I talked to you on Friday morning, and that's what. And Friday, I kind of collapsed, and by Friday evening, I couldn't even lift a fork to my mouth. That's how paralyzed my right side was, and yet I've been eating breakfast and doing things to strengthen that right arm, and I see.
Well, again, we're so thankful for the great medical profession and the people we have to help you. That you were able to get the right care you needed, and now you got great people helping you with the physical therapy and occupational therapy. And so again, we're grateful for those people too.
Yeah, and they are good. And I've had an opportunity to talk to a couple of medical doctors here and a couple of the therapists, and I had a history of speaking at two medical colleges, Jefferson in Philadelphia and Hahnemann Medical School, and they were very receptive to what I had to say. Because I start off my talk by saying, we're not trying to duplicate what you're doing or replace what you're doing. And I think they understand that, and they seem to respect me here, and respect me as I talk to other chiropractors and explain the uniqueness of our approach and the uniqueness of what we do.
Right.
And I said many times that the medical profession seems to grasp what I'm trying to do, and what we're the position that we're taking in chiropractic. It's only chiropractors who seem to have
Yeah.
problem understanding it, because they want to move into those other areas. And
Yeah.
and I say, no, we don't want to. We want to do our thing, which
Yeah.
was to restore the integrity of the nervous system, enable the body to function at its maximum, regardless of individuals' physical or medical problems. And
Mm-hmm.
the profession that we're dealing with now seems to grasp what we're doing,
Yeah.
and respect that. So
Yeah. Well said, as always. And that's just it right there. You know, we've got a big job to do as chiropractors, and we can be proud of it. And we don't have to try to be something we're not and have this conflict with other professions. We can work alongside of them, and they do their thing, we do our thing, and it's great. And that's again where it gets us back to our philosophy, and that's why you are able to so clearly articulate that to your practice members in the past, to medical professions, because you have such a deep understanding of where we come from as a profession. And that's what we've been talking about here. And so so today, principle 13, I want to get some thoughts about that, and how that relates to what we're doing and how we're serving people. And principle 13 is pretty simple in terms of its wording here. It's just simply the function of matter. And the brief description that Stevenson gives is simply the function of matter is to express force. Now, what's cool when I read this, you know, and I have to admit that sometimes when I read stuff like this, I just accept what they're saying without putting much thought into it sometimes. And yet, what I love about what you've done in the commentaries is you haven't been afraid to kind of call things out and put some more thought into it, and maybe offer a little correction or clarity when necessary. Because he goes on to explain a little bit more detail about the function of matter is to express force. And then he ends it by saying the term force is used in chiropractic as energy is in physics. So I want to get your thoughts on this, because first of all, maybe there's a better way to describe what the function of matter is than just to say the function of matter is to express force, right? Maybe it's better to say, go ahead.
yeah, I think when we talk about matter, of course, we're still talking about universal matter. In fact, I think the next principle is the idea of universal life. But we are talking about matter that is in existence, which would be any kind of matter, whether it's a rock or a corpse or a living body. All matter expresses intelligence, and that's what we're talking about, is the universal intelligence, or the matter in its existence. And I think that's probably a term that probably would be better off using that term when we talk about matter in this particular principle. The concept of matter expressing existence, and a rock exists just as much as a human body, just as much as a corpse. Matter exists. And
which we can take that a step further and say that matter is expressing intelligence.
Right.
Which is what you're saying in different words.
Right. And then, of course, as we move on, we'll see that this is it in the next principle number 14 says universal force is manifested by motion in matter. And we know that all matter has motion in it. Even on the atomic level, it has motion. You know, the atoms are whirling about, the protons are whirling around the neutrons, and there is motion. So I think it's kind of interesting that when we talk about universal matter, we're talking about motion, which doesn't seem like a rock. Rock has as much motion as a 5-year-old racing around the living room,
Right.
but there's motion in that in the matter of a rock because it's made up of has atomic weight, and it has ions and electrons, and of course it's moving at the speed that we don't recognize it as moving unless somebody throws that rocket at you, then you see it moving, but it is moving, and
Yes.
which is kind of ironic because we don't see innate matter, which we don't see any motion or visible motion in innate matter. But when you take that innate matter down to its simplest components, are has an atomic structure to it, and whether it's hydrogen or oxygen or one of the other elements, it is the protons are moving around the nucleus, and there is motion to it, and so we need to keep that in mind as we are understanding this whole concept of universal matter.
So get into your commentary here, where you mentioned just what you've just again stated there, but just to summarize, that maybe the better idea here for the function of matter is it's expressing intelligence, and that the force is what's holding and keeping it all together, keeping that rock together. But there's that a rock is because it's expressing a certain type of intelligence versus us.
Right, and Stevenson calls that in the next principle universal life. In other words, there's life in that universal matter, even if it's a rock. That rock has chemical components, but it still is life in that it manifests motion and movement, and movement of the protons around the neutrons, and that's the concept of universal matter. All matter has motion, therefore there's universal life in all matter, and that's what we're trying to get across in this point. Now, as we go on, we'll talk about innate intelligence and see that there is difference there. But even if you break that universal matter, or make that innate matter down to its simplest components, and take all the quote life from it, it still has the idea that it does exist. It still exists, whether it exists as a corpse or whether it exists as a rock. It still has that same concept of existence, and I think that's what we need to understand at this point when we're talking about universal intelligence as opposed to innate intelligence. The innate intelligence does not really manifest universal life, but it manifests innate intelligence. And as we go on, we'll see that difference between innate matter and universal matter. And we, of course, we deal with innate matter, and the expression of that innate intelligence. And of course, that's our objective, is to enable that innate intelligence to be expressed as fully as possible with every living person.
Yep, perfect. Now, the second half here of the of Principle 13 that I want to get your thoughts on is the little note that Stevenson has at the end of his more detailed explanation of this principle. He finishes it by saying the term force is used in chiropractic as energy is in physics. And there seems to be a bit of a conflict there, possibly.
Yeah, I think, and it's like anything else, we have to define our terminology, and of course, we use the term force and energy, and yet they're not really the same thing. Force is direction, or force is what motivates matter to act. It's an action thing, and of course that action is not the action of a rock moving, because rocks don't move except in landslides, but it's the action of the atomic structure within that universal matter. And people don't see that, because it's moving in such a way that we don't even perceive that moving any more than we perceive the movement of the earth going around the sun. That the earth is still moving because there's intelligence giving direction, or giving action, or giving activity toward that that the earth moving around the sun. We don't see it. We just able to measure it and perceive it by understanding that principle, but it's not something that we can perceive. It's if it was, we would be flying off the earth as people flying off America around. I think
right.
See that on cartoons where the American rocket's going really fast, and then the cartoon characters go flying off it.
Right.
But we don't see that. We don't perceive that, because it's happening at such a imperceptible manner that we don't perceive.
So basically, we have to be clear here that we're using force differently than they would really in physics. Or excuse me, the terms are not really synonymous. They're maybe better as an analogy. Yes. And he doesn't really clarify that here. And so that's why we have to maybe just make sure we think about that in a way where we're not confusing the way the physicist would use the word energy. It's like you put in your commentary here, that energy is a physical thing. And that's why matter can be changed into energy. Force, on the other hand, is a non-physical entity, or at least partly metaphysical. So one is a physical thing and one is not.
Right. Yeah, energy is a physical thing. And in fact, I think Claude in his book interchanges the term energy and matter. In fact, he kind of describes it as matter energy, because I think Einstein showed us that when you change the concept of the matter, it can be changed into energy.
Exactly.
And Reggie used to say in class, when he explained this concept to us, that what we're really seeing is matter changed into energy. It's totally different than force. Energy and matter are changeable, just like ice and water are changeable. Both of the same components, H2O, but they change, and structural changes, and that's what we're dealing with. So we need to make the distinction between force and energy.
Yes.
And that force is really intelligent direction that is given by the intelligence of the universe. So that takes us back to principle number one.
That's so important, because that's a huge difference. That's not even remotely the same thing. So it's important. That's why, again, as you have said, and Reggie before has said, we got to be so clear on our terms and what we're speaking about, and otherwise we get confusion, because, like I said, what you just described, those are completely different things and have therefore different meanings and outcomes in how we interpret this. So.
Right.
Well, hey, I know you got to get going here. We just whipped through Principle 13 faster than we have anything else to this point. So That was impressive.
Yeah. Well, but I think the thing that we need to grasp, the concept that we need to grasp, is that the universal intelligence creates force, and that force can be um, manifested as motion in matter, and all matter has motion,
Mm-hmm.
and even the even that corpse is lying there in the morgue, but there still is motion within the
Right.
the particles that make up that corpse when you
Mm-hmm.
take it to the atomic structure. So
That's principle 13. I was just going to ask if you had any final thoughts on it, and that was it right there, and that sums it
yeah.
all up. Any?
I think we need to understand that universal life is not an insurance company. I think that's the important thing that we need to understand.
There we go. There we go. If you got that, you got it all figured out. You're good to go.
Right. Well, you
All
take
right,
care.
bud. Well, thanks again. Thanks for taking some time, and always appreciate it. And look forward to speaking to you soon.
Yeah, we'll get through these things, Lord willing, and I stay upright.
That's right.